They say grief fades with time, but that's not true. Sometimes, time just teaches you how to hide it better. 2 years after Helen died, I thought I'd finally learned how to live alone, how to drink my morning coffee without whispering her name under my breath. Then I found a letter, tucked inside her Bible. Her handwriting. Her scent still on the paper. But it wasn't addressed to me. And from that moment, nothing about my marriage, my family, or my life made sense anymore. My name's Frank Miller, 72 years old, born and raised in Springfield, Missouri. I drove trucks for nearly 50 years, long highways, long nights, just me and the sound of diesel humming under an endless sky. Now my mornings are slower, quieter. Coffee at 6, radio humming old country tunes, porch light still on because I forget to turn it off sometimes. I still sit at the same kitchen table where Helen used to fold laundry, where we'd argue about little things like how much sugar belonged in coffee. Her Bible sits right there, next to her reading glasses, exactly where she left them. I never moved it. I couldn't. They say every old man carries a ghost or two. Mine just wore Helen's perfume. Our boy, David, is 38 now. Lives in Kansas City. Works with computers, something I never quite understood. He visits every few months, usually in a hurry, tapping on his phone while I try to ask about his life. Last time he came, he looked around the house and said, "Dad, you ever think about selling this place? You don't need all the space anymore." I smiled, said no, even though he looked at me like I was holding onto a relic. You see, this house wasn't just wood and paint. It was every mile I ever drove, every hour I spent away from Helen and David so they could have something better. When Helen got sick, David was too busy to come home much. I told myself he had a family, a job, responsibilities. But deep down, I felt that cold distance growing, the same kind that sneaks into every family when life gets faster than love. After the funeral, David stayed a few days. I overheard him one night on the phone, whispering, "Yeah, he's old. He won't even notice. Just give it time." I told myself I misheard him. You learn to forgive the young for their arrogance. You tell yourself they'll understand one day. But a father knows when something's off. Something in his voice wasn't pity, it was calculation. And for the first time, I felt afraid of my own son. A few weeks later, I was cleaning out Helen's old trunk to donate clothes to the church. At the bottom was her Bible, old and soft, the one she read every night before bed. As I lifted it, a small envelope slipped out, sealed tight, yellowed with age. My heart stopped when I saw her handwriting. But it wasn't my name. It was David's. I sat down at the table, hands shaking, and opened it. It started gentle, "My dearest David." But her words changed as I read. She wrote that she knew about the money he took from my retirement account years ago. That he forged my signature, convinced her to stay quiet so it wouldn't ruin the family. She begged him to tell me the truth one day. Said she couldn't carry the guilt forever. She died before she ever saw that day come. I sat there for hours, just staring at that paper. I wasn't angry at first, just broken. Because it meant that the woman I trusted most chose silence over truth. And the son I worked my whole life for stole my peace before I even knew it. The house felt hollow that night. I poured myself a drink, but it tasted like dust. I whispered to her empty chair, "You should have told me, Helen." But she couldn't. She was gone. And now, it was just me, and the truth. I didn't shout. I didn't curse. I just folded that letter back into the Bible and went to bed. But I didn't sleep. I lay there replaying 50 years of sacrifice, every mile, every missed Christmas, every ache in my back, all traded for loyalty that wasn't returned. By morning, the anger had cooled into something sharper. Resolve. I spent the next few weeks visiting banks, old records, and the lawyer who handled Helen's estate. Turns out, she'd trusted David to help with some paperwork after her diagnosis. That's when he moved money, enough to matter. I didn't confront him. Men like David, They rely on your silence. They think old age means weakness. But old age? It's just experience with better aim. I started planning. I had Helen's Bible, her letter, and every document I needed. I rewrote my will, sold off a few old trucks, and moved the rest of my assets into a trust under Helen's name. Then I asked Pastor Reed to help organize a small memorial, a year of remembrance for Helen. David agreed to come. He had no idea what I had waiting for him. A few days before the memorial, David called, sounding irritated. "Dad, I got an email saying your accounts were changed. Did you do something?" I said, "Just keeping things tidy, son." He sighed. "You don't need to mess with finances. I told you I can handle that stuff." I smiled into the phone. "I'm sure you can." He started sending more messages, asking about property deeds, panicking about things he couldn't control anymore. I didn't answer most of them. The less I said, the more he scrambled. Small-town folks talk, and people started noticing him pacing around before the service, phone glued to his ear, whispering like a man with secrets catching up to him. I sat quietly in the front pew, Helen's Bible in my lap. Sometimes silence is the loudest sound in the room. The memorial service began softly, hymns Helen loved, a few words from the pastor, stories about her kindness. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up slowly. Hands trembling, voice steady. I said, Helen was a woman of faith. And faith, my friends, isn't about pretending everything's fine. It's about facing the truth. Then I opened her Bible, pulled out the letter, and read it. Every word. You could hear the air leave the room when I said David's name. Gasps, whispers, a few tears. David stood up, pale, trying to stop me. Dad, please, I raised a hand. No, son. You've spoken enough for one lifetime. I finished reading, folded the letter, and said, Helen's memory deserves peace. So from this day on, everything she and I built, the house, the savings, the land, will be donated to the church in her name. People began clapping softly. Some cried. David stormed out, red-faced, unable to meet my eyes. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Weeks passed. David tried calling, writing, even showing up once. I didn't answer. I wasn't angry anymore, I was finished. I started helping at the church food drive, teaching young men how to drive rigs, how to earn something with their hands. I'd sit on my porch in the evenings, listening to the cicadas, feeling Helen's presence in the breeze. Sometimes I'd open her Bible again, trace the spot where the letter used to be, and whisper, we're even now, sweetheart. You can rest. It wasn't forgiveness I found. It was peace, the kind that doesn't come from forgetting, but from finally letting go. Life teaches you strange lessons in the end. The young think they're smarter, faster, untouchable. But they forget, we built the world they stand on. Our silence isn't weakness. It's patience. So if someone ever took your kindness for granted, remember, dignity is its own kind of revenge. If this story touched your heart, tell me your thoughts in the comments. I read every one of them, because stories like ours, they're the truth of this country. And to Helen, thank you for one last lesson.